This is Chloe. All right, you can help us stand up. Right here, there's the flag, and let's say it together. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chloe. So there's plenty of Girl Scout cookies in the back. So. Okay, thanks everyone for being here tonight. We have everybody here present. Perfect attendance. And next, we'll go down to the approval of the agenda. We need to make some adjustments to the agenda. Let's make sure I have these right. We're going to, on the agenda tonight, we're going to take 9B and insert law enforcement report. That'd be 9B under law enforcement. Then in 12B, we will be adding closed session for Salem Springs LLC litigation. Again, that would be 12B under closed session, Salem Springs LLC litigation. And the last one, I believe, will be, if you look down at 8B1 under financial, we will be moving that to 13 under motions for closed session. Are there any other additions or deletions?
Mr. Supervisor, if I could suggest, you and I had chatted earlier in the day about a potential need for a special board meeting at the end of the month to review any last-minute budget issues. Could we make that board discussion 10D as far as scheduling a special meeting at the end of the month?
So that'd be 10D.
Now, that's the
Under board discussion? He might have an old agenda.
yeah.
So that would be under 10D for a special board meeting. Okay, any other additions, deletions? Okay, all those approving the agenda as presented, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the agenda is set. Okay, tonight we have a presentation from the South Lyon Youth Assistance, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Trent.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm pleased to introduce two guests that are with us from the South Lyon Youth Assistance. And if they wouldn't mind coming up to the side table at this time to get queued up to speak with us. We have Radha Visheri Sirsadar. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad. She is the chairperson of the local South Lyon Youth Assistance. And with her is Doreen Brandt, who is the assigned caseworker who works at South Lyon High and works with children within the school district that get referred to their agency. And we're pleased to have them with us tonight. Some of you that have been longtime Salem Township Board of Trustee meeting attenders would know that many years ago We had a relationship with the Southline Youth Assistants that sometime in the recent era had fallen by the wayside. 2 fiscal years ago, we were able to reestablish that relationship with Southline Youth Assistants, and we're pleased to have these folks from the agency with us tonight to give us an updated report. So welcome.
Thank you, Dave, for having us. So my name is Radha Sagar. I'm the chairperson of Southline Area Youth Assistance. And we're here today to talk a little bit about our program and how some of your kids have actually been involved in our program. So for those of you who are not familiar with what we do, Youth Assistance is actually a nonprofit organization committed to a couple things: strengthening the youth and families by preventing and reducing juvenile delinquency, child abuse, and child neglect. So we have 8 programs that actually help us achieve that goal. I'm going to talk about 6 of those programs and just give you a bit of a highlight of what those are. So one of them is a skill building program, which allows children to apply for scholarships for different things that would help improve their skill level. So it can be anything from sports to arts to computer skills, anything that's going to be an improvement in their performance of their life. And we hope that these kids later on in life will take the skill and become better people. We also have a youth recognition program that we have once a year. And this event actually recognizes the youth in our community that give back to the community. So students who volunteer their time with churches, with schools, with different organizations. We recognize them at a breakfast event, and then we do hand out multiple scholarships to graduating seniors to help them go on with continuing education. And these scholarship amounts I'll let Doreen talk on in a minute are not small amounts either, and your money has helped support some of those things. We also have a summer camp that we send our children to. It's a week-long program, usually somewhere up north, where the kids get a chance to spend overnight camp and do things they can't do here in this community. So it's a really great event for them. We have a back-to-school shopping event where we allow our kids to actually go shopping and pick out things that they need for school, whether it's supplies or clothes or things that they need to get school started with, and we help scholarship that. We also have Summer Enrichment, which is a 2-week-long program in our town where the kids who really want to learn about drama and music get together and they learn about those skill sets, and then they actually put on a musical for us at the end of the summer. And then we have the Homework Center, which is tutoring sessions that we offer kids after school to come and learn and basically get tutored by teachers that we hire. And in these sessions, they get to get a snack, they get to get tutored, and they get to actually complete their homework. So it's a way for them to actually complete their homework before they go to school. So those are 6 of the programs that we have, and I'll let Doreen talk about the other 2.
Hey, thank you. My name again is Doreen Brandt, and I'm very pleased to have taken over the position as permanent part-time caseworker this past January. I have the pleasure to work with a wonderful board of volunteers, so I'm very fortunate. We have a great board, and they're doing a lot for the community. As a caseworker, I work with the families and youth. We look at family and individual strengths and weaknesses, and we set out a goals and set objectives to work with families to overcome instances of truancy. There's different situations with schools. I also get referrals from the police department and family court. I also focus on prevention and looking at situations before they get too serious and developing an intervention plan. As Radha mentioned, we also have a mentors program where we match up adults, caring adults with youth. We're fortunate enough excuse me, to have 10 volunteers this past January that are going through orientation and training. That is one of the highest turnouts for volunteers, for mentors throughout the Oakland County program. In addition, our Family Ed department is putting on a Love and Logic program. That's going to be beginning at 6 sessions in May, teaching parenting skills and support. We gave the board an outline for what we've done for your residents, March 1, 2012 through February 28, 2013. Salem Township residents, there have been 2 children that received skill building program. There was also youth recognition. 2 children received services from that program. Youth recognition, there was 1 child that received a $750 scholarship. Summer camp, there were 4 children from Salem Township that received scholarships to a camp that they go to. Our back-to-school program, shopping program, there was 1 child that received services for that program where they get to go and get supplies for the school year. In addition, there was 1 child that participated in the summer enrichment program, and 9 children have participated in our homework centers. Those are held at the 2 middle schools and at Kent Lake Elementary School. We have tutors there that are there to help the kids with after-school tutoring and program, and just a place for them to go and get support and help. So we thank you for your continued support for youth assistance and your sponsorship, and we really appreciate your help with helping the families and youth of our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Supervisor, if I could just add, for the board's attention as well, this is queued up in your invoices for approval tonight, and it's $1,000 that we commit to the Southline Youth Assistance Group, and we're glad to have them help service some of our students from Salem Township. And this is a program that's offered to all students regardless of the school district that they reside in, since we do have 4 different school districts, and we're going to publicize our relationship again with Southline Youth Assistance in an upcoming Township Messenger as well.
Very good. Thanks again. Okay, moving down to public hearing. This is my first public hearing to conduct, so bear with me. So we'd like to make a motion to have a public hearing considering the proposed budget for 2013 and 2014.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we open up the public hearing at 7:14 for the purposes of hearing public comments on the proposed fiscal year budget 2013-14.
So that's a second?
Well, if you're making that,
right.
that's a second, I'd be happy to second that.
Okay. All those in favor of opening the public comment, say aye.
Aye.
It's a roll
Or
call.
we need a roll call.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Lindsley, yes. Whitaker?
Yes. All right. So we've opened up. Anybody like to make a comment? You can step up to the mic. Any questions? This is the first budget that we put together. It's kind of interesting getting it all together. So when you're looking through it or have looked through it, there's a lot of information on there. Yes, Larry.
My name's Larry Krosky, I live on Cherry Lane. Just a couple of questions for clarification as to some of the changes that have come through this current year. First question is the returns concerning revenues. Is the expectation, the reduction to about $100,000, is that based on current trends in the investment pattern, or is there a different type of investment that we're using for the looking forward?
Primarily, I can answer that. Primarily, the reason being that the bonds that we're getting right now, usually we're bringing in anywhere from about 0.6 to 1 point. So the interest rates are typically way down from where they have been in the past. And I've tried to diversify the portfolio But the bottom line is all the rates are down there, and there's just no way we can get any higher than that unless we go into, and I won't go into, we can't go into junk bonds or any of that.
Is the term that they're being purchased for, is that having any effect on the ability to get a greater return?
You can get a little greater return by going out longer in time, but to go out and lock yourself into like a 2% for 15 years, I won't do. Because we don't anticipate that the interest rates are going to stay low for very long, and when they go back up, you're going to be locked in at those low rates for a long time. So my objective here is to try to keep as short as possible as we can, and been going out anywhere from 3 to 5 years on the length of the duration of the bond.
So these aren't simply 30 or 60, 90 day?
No.
Okay. On contracted services, it's page 12, under 101-265, 823. There's an increase of about $5,000. Is there a particular segment or item that we're looking to add? This is under Township Hall and Office. We've been trending in the last year or so. Is there something that we see based on some history there that we're needing to go back up the other $5,000?
Other than some of the increases that we have seen come through. But I know
I wouldn't know what
Yeah.
kind of contracted
Yeah.
services are in there. I'm just
well, a
curious.
lot of them are, like from our lawn care to,
Well, that's
what
probably
page are
the
you
one.
on? What page are you on?
It's page 12, it's
Oh, okay.
101, 265, 823. And there's a lot of differentiation in the listing there. I just didn't know what was in that and what prompted roughly a 20% increase. I mean, in general, everything's pretty tight, so this one was just up a bit, and I was curious as to what was driving that decision.
Just the maintenance of, I know we've talked about some of the repairs and stuff that we've had actually in the township hall. The bathrooms and stuff like that we're talking about doing some repairs. Yeah, other than that, that's, unless
Just
anybody else
highlighting if
remembers
there's-
any of the stuff we discussed.
If there's any other detail that would
Yeah.
be helpful, just for understanding of that. On the next page, under land preservation and conservation, I'm just confused as to how the structure of this is, because consultant fees is going from 2,000 then with no activity up to 14, but then the line underneath it, and the line underneath is Department 101-285, and then 818.013. It's cut off, it just says Road Preservation and Conservation Committee. I'm not sure what those expenses, or, because it was $9,900 during the year, and as far as activity, and I don't know if this is payments or to those participating on the committee, that's what it might be interpreted as, and I don't know if they get paid or not, but I'm just curious as to, that goes to 0 and then consultant goes to 14,000. Is there any logic to how that was structured in this fashion?
And Mr. Supervisor, that is part of reassigning the consultant fees of Mr. Lonick to that line item. Previously, when the committee was first established, those expenditures for Mr. Lonick were going to that line item, and it carried through to this year.
Okay.
And reassessing where's the best place to put those types of fees, it was determined that he's truly a consultant, and we should move those into the consultant fee line.
Okay, so that's not fees paid to the members serving on the committee, that's
No, no,
fees to the consultant, you just realize. I think I have one or two other questions. Give me a second. I'm noticing a lot of I'm on the fire department page now. I'm noticing a lot of reduction in training wages. Is that because everybody's sort of up to speed on training and now there's no need to have the same level of spending in there?
Well, we talked a lot about that since the department had in-house and out-house training. So I felt myself and some others have discussed the fact that why the fees are so high. And so we've adjusted them. A lot had to do with the schooling that they had previously been using. Example, we found out that the 5 training officers that they had hired before, going to Schoolcraft College for, I think it was like $17,000, where we can use a different, in Washington County for $4,000. So that was a pretty simple decision to change that. So, but that's basically in the reduction of training.
I mean, it's excellent that there's some reassignment of that as long as there's not any lack of training.
No.
But if you're finding a way to do that with
No.
better use of funds, then
Right.
that's great news for all of us. Almost done. And then the last item pertains to, it's on page 21, pertains to the sewer fund. And this may just be a technical accounting issue. But I noticed that the depreciation expense, the very last line, 999, we have a budget in there every year, but then when we go to the actual activity, it zeroes out every year. And if the budget is a true expenditure report or a cash report, the depreciation not being a cash item, I'm unclear as to why we maintain a depreciation expense within this report, unless it's a funded account. In other words, if we're actually setting aside cash for future repairs. So does anybody know why we tend to maintain that as a part of the budget for the sewer fund? And that's more of a technical question, and if nobody has an answer, I understand, but if somebody could find out from either the accounting firm or somewhere, I've dealt with these in the past, and we've actually removed them when we can. There may be some technical reason why it has to be in there. I'm not trying to trip anybody up on this, I'm just trying to understand why it remains in there, but every year we take it off, probably before audit.
I can't answer your question. I'll try to answer, or I'll try to find some information for you. But as far as the sewer fund goes, I believe we're trying to bring in some people to help us with this. It's been a big issue coming in as new people. It's not properly funded. There's a lot of issues with it that we have to deal with.
Yeah, we had some questions on the audit committee last year, so
Right.
again, this may all be related,
So I know, Dale, we do have some people coming in to help on it, and it will be addressed.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right,
Okay.
thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Anybody else? Okay, well then we'll close the public hearing for the proposed budget for 2013 and 14 at 7:26, is it?
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to public hearing for vacating of the alley on Euclid Street. To open up the public hearing at 7:26 or 27, what is it? I can't see.
26 and a half.
All right, 26 and a half. Can I have a second?
Support.
All those, we need a roll call on that.
Roll call, Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, Whitaker.
Yes. Okay. Any comments on that? Public hearing, we'll open it up. If anybody has any comments on that? All right. I don't, is anybody here representing that at all that would like to make any comments?
I'm here. I don't really have any comments. We're just trying to get the alley closed behind Euclid. So I don't know if anyone has questions or not.
Okay. I just have a question as far as, are all the neighbors that are involved in this, do we have signatures? Do we have,
Yeah, that I don't know. Mrs. Robinson is going to submit she has a petition to gather the signatures. I know she was in the process of gathering those before she went on vacation. I don't know if they've been submitted or not.
I have not submitted the signatures. The neighbor to the south of us, I sent the information to, and it was returned to me. The invalid mailing address, which I received the address off the Washtenaw County website for property owners. And the ones just to the north of us, I have asked for it a couple of times, but she hasn't said no, she wouldn't give it to me, but every time I asked for it, she said she hadn't signed it yet, but it was my understanding that if we went to the public hearing, as long as they were notified, that we could move forward with the process.
I do have some concern if the adjoining neighbors haven't signed off. I know we did public notification of this in the Southline Herald, but I don't believe you sent any notification to the adjoining landowners. So I guess it's possible if we could put this off until the special meeting, if we have to have a special meeting anyway, it may be a good idea to do that, and then we can send notice to those abutting landowners to the alley to make sure everybody is on notice.
And should we send the special notices before the special meeting?
Yes.
Before the special meeting?
is that it?
That's it. I thought you guys were sending those notices. They are aware of it. But like I said, at least the one neighbor to the north of us is aware of it. She just hasn't given me the paperwork. So I don't know how to get in touch with those to the south of us.
Right.
So.
I think we all are in favor to help out with this situation. It's just that I would, as a supervisor, I would just want to make sure all the neighbors are aware that we have some kind of, because we wouldn't want them coming back later
Right.
at us and saying, hey, then we got a legal issue and stuff. So,
Okay.
now I haven't been involved in this, so I think Dell's been,
Right.
and the attorney has. So I will, I will help follow this through to make sure that we get this taken care of for the residents that want this done.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Carl, I know you're under some time deadlines. Is that, if we do this at the next meeting, which is, what's the date of the next meeting?
To be determined.
To be determined, which before the end of the month, I assume, yeah. If we do this before the end of the month, does that give you sufficient time on your deadline?
I would have to make the contact with the bank again, so, they had given me a time frame, so it's starting to push it
Okay.
quite a bit, so. But if that's what we need to do, we'll see what we can do.
If you could let either the supervisor or myself know.
Sure. Would you, before you leave tonight, would you leave me your phone number and
Yeah,
stuff?
I can do
Okay.
that.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much
All right.
Ed has been wonderful
Good.
to work with, so I greatly appreciate all your help you've been giving us. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, yes.
Yes, I am one of the neighbors on Euclid Street. This is my first time hearing about this, was the other day. I would like to have, something to say what this is all about, so I can take back, and the neighbor you're talking about, I can get a hold of him, I know where he lives. And maybe we can move forward on it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Mr. Supervisor, could we get the name of that gentleman just for our records? You know who that is?
Jeff Hopkins?
Thank you.
Okay. If nobody else, then we will close the public hearing at 7:32.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we move down to public comment.
Gary, if we have a comment about the rezoning that's coming up, is now the time you want us to
You can now, or?
make it? Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of my father, who lives at 10857 Hickory Lane in Salem Township. The rezoning before you tonight is based on sound planning principles and consistent with your master plan. Many residents have lived in the area that is called the USD for a long time. My father has lived on Hickory Lane for 30 years. When I read the Urban Service District Ordinance, your master plan, and Salem Township's growth management plan, it became very apparent that Salem's prior board members and founding fathers were concerned about pre-existing residents in the USD area dating back to 1988. The Urban Service District Ordinance states that future growth should not create adverse impacts on existing residential uses. A residential office will have less of a negative effect on property values in the area than a heavier commercial use. The plan clearly states that inefficient and incompatible arrangement of land uses will not be tolerated within the Urban Service District. Every effort will be undertaken to eliminate the results of sprawl, strip, hit or miss, or spotty development. General commercial next to residential is considered spot zoning, and the two uses are not compatible. One of the purposes of a residential office park district is to accommodate certain small office uses in low-density, spacious campus environments, which are low-traffic generators and which are compatible with adjacent and neighboring single-family dwellings. We feel that rezoning these parcels ROP would provide a reasonable use of the property and be compatible with the area. New housing in Michigan is on the rise and our economy is rebounding. As new residents move to the area, there will be a need for professional offices such as engineering, financial, accounting, medical, dental, optometry, insurance, and believe it or not, even legal offices. I have a daughter graduating from my optometry school next year, and I can't think of a better location for her to start a practice. There is no land in Salem Township or the immediate sections of the adjacent Superior or Plymouth Charter Townships currently zoned for office park development, or the type and intensity of small-scale office-related land uses envisioned in this zoning district. In Plymouth Township, just to the east of Napier Road, on both sides of M14, nice residential homes have been constructed. By rezoning these parcels ROP, it would not create an isolated district or abrupt land use change to our friends and neighbors to the east, along with the residents of Salem that live within the USD. The USD consists of over 1,400 acres of land. The master plan for the USD allows for all types of heavy land uses and high-density housing. The plan is a good one because it does take into consideration the surrounding area. A lot of thought and sound planning principles were used when placing future uses in the proper locations within the USD. Before you tonight is a decision to rezone approximately 91 acres of the USD to residential office park, which was and still is master plan for that area. 91 acres is less than 7% of the total acreage in the USD. What will you tell the next guy if you don't follow the plan tonight when he asks, why them and not me? Please take a moment and envision 1,400 acres of general commercial use. The right decision is to stick with the plan. Our motive has never been about no growth. It has always been about sticking with the master plan. Please don't forget the fact that over 70% of Salem's residents that voted in last November's election are in support of sticking with the plan. The very same residents that tossed the old guys out and elected you into office. Please follow the plan and rezone these parcels residential office park tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Klein. Anyone else?
I just really quick have a question on clarification of Mr. Klein's initial question, which is, will you entertain discussion at the time that this issue is before the board, or is this the only time to speak?
If it's to the point while we're, discussing it, that we'll probably give you a chance to say something.
Okay, then I'll wait for that.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, if not, let's move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Wensley.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Letter A, minutes of the February 12, 2013 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Just one typo on page 5. It should say, on the top page, it should say February 12th instead of January 22nd. The second, letter B, minutes of the closed session, February 12th, 2013 regular meeting. C, the disbursements for February 2013. The general fund, we had disbursements for the February check roster of $79,785.82, and the checks were dispersed $23,756 through $23,816. We also had disbursements of the escrow fund for $686 for check number 1516. We had payroll of $50,380.33. We had the electronic funds transfer to Paycor for $180. We had disbursements for the sewer fund of $132,804.65. Those were dispersed through 3 checks, check numbering 1885 and 1887. March's invoices, letter D, we have general fund invoices for $50,380.33, and we have the sewer fund invoices for $122. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passed. Okay, down to number 8, business items under public safety. Mr. Trent.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the appointment of the following members to a bargaining committee. Fire Chief Jim Rockwell, Supervisor Gary Whitaker, Trustee David Trent, and Treasurer Dale Converse, and to have the following charge: negotiate memorandums of understanding with the Salem Township Fire Department union representatives to clarify administrative issues related to the bargaining agreement adopted in August 2011, and to report back to the Board of Trustees for the purposes of allowing the board to vote on ratification of any modifications and/or memorandums of understanding to the bargaining agreement. Legal assistance in this matter shall be provided by Patrick Asseltine, counsel from the law firm of Johnson Rosati.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Beth? Schmidt?
Mr. Supervisor, just as a point of background information for this new board, there was a bargaining committee that was appointed 2 years ago to bargain with the union representatives from the fire department on the contract that was adopted almost 2 years ago. As we've had new firefighters come into the fold with the training cost, and there's been administrative issues that we've had to contend with, and with Chief Rockwell, who was intimately involved in negotiating the contract as he wore the union president hat back at that time. He is well acquainted with some of these new administrative issues now that he's on our side of the aisle, and it would be beneficial for us to be able to sit down with the union representatives and iron out some of these administrative issues that have come to bear over the last several months. And we would hope to come back to the board in a very short time, probably less than 2 months, to have some potential memorandums of understanding for your review.
Okay. You have a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's passed. All right, Mr. Trent, with another motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the appointment of the following members to the Fire Department Officers Interview Committee. The same representatives as indicated in the last motion: Fire Chief Jim Rockwell, Supervisor Gary Whitaker, Trustee David Trent, and Treasurer Dale Converse, and to have the following charge: interview candidates for the 2 positions of lieutenant in the Salem Township Fire Department, and report back to the board on the recommendations.
You have a second on that?
Yes, I'll second.
Daniel, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed. Okay, we're down to B2, approval of the budget for 2013 and 14. I move that Salem Township approve the Salem Township General Appropriations Act for the fiscal year 2013 and 14 with a change in the, down on the second page of the land preservation. It says under zoning department, 285. That needs to be changed to the land preservation. That was a mistake. We change that.
I'll support that, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, have a second. Any discussion? And I believe we'll need a roll call vote on this approved budget.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Converse,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Lensly, yes. Trent,
Yes.
Motion's passed. Okay. B3. I move that Salem Township approve the annual salaries for the 2013-14 fiscal year, April 1st, 2013, at the following rates for the elected officials: $35,100 for administrative offices, that's supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, $6,150 for trustees.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Roll call vote, Mr.
All
Supervisor.
right, we need a roll call vote. Sorry about that.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yep.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes. Whitaker?
Yes. All right, down to the number 4 on salaries. New elected officials. David?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move that Salem Township approve the annual pay rates for the 2013-14 fiscal year effective April 1st, 2013 at the following rates for non-elected officials. Deputy Treasurer, $19 an hour. Deputy Clerk, $19.95 an hour. Community Development Administrator, $22 an hour. Administrative Assistant, $22 an hour. Fire Chief, $22,852 annually. The Fire Department personnel will receive a 2% increase in pay according to the contract. We apologize for the typo on the original motion. It was part of the board package. And also for the board, you have an attachment for the other hourly rates for all other non-elected officials, which include Planning Commission, Maintenance, Elections, Board of Review, Land Preservation Board, etc. And those will be maintained at their current rate for the 2013-14 year.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Wensley, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? We need a roll call, another roll call.
All right. Whitaker?
Yes.
Wensley, yes. Trent?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
And Converse.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, to administrative. We're going to take C1 and we're going to discuss the vacating of the alley. So that's, we'll set a time under board discussion, correct? Is that what we decided?
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a formal motion if you would like that we postpone the vacating of the alley on Euclid Street until the next special board meeting to be established at the end of March.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the Neighborhood Watch Committee. I move that Salem Township approve to the appointment of Trustee Schmidt to chairperson of the Neighborhood Watch Committee. Chairperson Schmidt will be charged with the individually confirming all current appointments to the committee and seeking out any additional members with board approval. The committee will be charged with developing and implementing a Nexel awareness campaign.
I'll support.
Dale Commerce, second. Any discussion? All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. Okay, we're down to D, Planning and Zoning. I'm going to turn it over to our board, our Planning Commission liaison person, T.J. McLaughlin.
I move that Salem Township Board adopt resolution number 2013-03-12-02, amending the zoning ordinance of Salem Township to rezone parcels number A01-25-300-009, A01-25-300-018, A01-25-300-019, A01-25-300-020, A01-25-300-021, and A01-25-400-007
approximately 91.6 acres, from agriculture residential to residential office park.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll second that motion with a kind, friendly amendment that we just change the resolution number at the end to 01, since we did not proceed with the vacating of the alley, which would have had a 01 had we done that tonight. So and that'll make everything else in the attached ordinance jive concurrently then.
Okay. All right, we'll turn it over to Rodney and to give your report from our planner.
Well, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We did, as part of the Planning Commission's review of this rezoning proposal, Don Pennington and I were asked to look at this proposal and prepare a report for the Planning Commission, which we did, a report dated February 27th, that examined this proposed rezoning based on the Township's master plan, the Urban Service District zoning regulations, and also Article 68, which is the section, the article in the zoning ordinance that covers amendments, particularly 68.05, which lists the findings of fact that the Planning Commission is required to consider when looking at a rezoning. This proposal came out of the results of a referendum vote last November that left the zoning status of the property in question, and that is an ongoing dispute as to what the property is zoned. We did take a look at the proposed rezoning to residential office park, and just like to, with your permission, just go through the factors that were involved in this proposal. We, as I said, section 68.05 of the zoning ordinance lists those findings of fact. One of the important findings of fact is the consistency of the rezoning proposal with the master plan. In this case, the master plan part 10, which is the section that covers the urban service district, has very specific information as to what the urban service district is intended to look like as it's developed. And it includes a map 19, which is a development concept for the district. This proposed rezoning is consistent with that development concept. The residential office park category is intended to be a transition zone. The location just north of M14 provides a buffer for residents, both existing residences to the north and also the intended urban residential areas that would be to the north of this property, buffering both the freeway, which is directly south of the property, and also the more intensive research and research applications activities and technology and industrial type activities that are intended to be south of the freeway. Another item in section 68.505, the Planning Commission considers whether or not the requested rezoning is justified by change in the conditions since the ordinance was adopted. And in that particular case, it is this referendum, it is the 2012 action by previous township board to approve a rezoning to the general commercial district for this property, and then the referendum vote which overturned that last November, that is certainly a change in conditions that makes this an important action to consider, because it would establish a definitive zoning classification for the property. Currently, the property is zoned agricultural residential. It can be used. Certainly it's possible to use the property for agriculture. It has not been farmed, but the residential office park zoning would be consistent with the master plan classification. Another key item that the Planning Commission noted in their motion was that this rezoning would establish a pattern for future rezonings within the urban service district, that the township does support the concept in the master plan, and so the future rezonings could follow that same pattern of rezoning consistent with the township's planning documents. In 2006, the township's engineering consultants did review the urban service district, prepared a utility plan for the district based on the master plan. And so the engineers have developed estimated wastewater flows for the area based on the assumption that it would eventually be zoned to this residential office park classification. Any future development on the property would have to deal with the issue of providing public services, but the engineers have confirmed that that it's possible to do that for this property. I think someone mentioned earlier that the property in the area to the east in Plymouth Township has more urban residential areas, and there are utilities Plymouth Township provides there. Just a couple of other items in our report. We did make note of the natural features on the property. The master plan identifies a piece of the property for possible conservation of natural features. That is not a zoning classification or even a master plan designation per se, but it's just making note in the master plan that there are significant natural features on portions of the property. The township zoning ordinance does have standards for dealing with natural features, whether preserving them or mitigating natural features that are removed as part of development. So that would be handled at the time when a future development takes place. I think the only other item we mentioned was just echo what was said earlier, is that there is no land currently zoned for this type of office park development in the area, whether in this immediate area of Salem Township or in the immediate area of the surrounding townships. The closest piece of property that is similar is located along Plymouth Road is in Superior Township, and it's a small 1-acre piece that has an existing building on it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I was just wondering, Mr. Manny, I don't know if your expertise involves getting into whether conditions are good for a particular kind of zoning from an economic point of view, because one thing we've been hearing is that ROP is not marketable. And I was wondering what your experience has been on that with the economy coming back. Is there more of a swing towards that kind of property being marketable again? Or, I don't even know if you even are interested in going there, if that's your expertise or not.
Well, it's a great question, and certainly this is an area of the township that is intended for development. And there certainly has been interest and activity in the past. The general economic conditions have made development of non-residential projects much more difficult financing-wise. What I would suggest would be to keep in mind that in terms of the master plan, we're looking at a 10 to 20 year time frame. We're looking at much beyond the current economic circumstance. And even with the zoning ordinance, we are looking out beyond like a 5 to 10 year time frame. And within that time frame, there are certainly opportunities. This is an area, this is a region that is a center for innovation. It is a region that certainly is a very attractive one for both for residents, but also for business activity, as evidenced by the activity that goes on to the east of Plymouth Township, and certainly activity that happens all throughout Washington County. So what I would say is that there are opportunities, and within the time frame that we look at from this planning perspective, that there certainly will be opportunities going forward. The trend for Washington County has been good, even quite frankly, despite the current economic circumstance.
And then one more question. In typical ROP classifications for the residents, what sort of protections are standard for? Because I would still assume that there's a certain amount of buffering that goes on, landscaping requirements. I don't know that, for the neighbors who are adjacent to the property, what would be considered normal?
Well, certainly the idea of buffering with having some setbacks from the residential areas and extensive landscaping, there are very specific standards within the zoning ordinance that cover those details. Some of the key elements are actually deal with softer issues like lighting. Exterior lighting can be just one fixture aimed in the wrong direction can cause significant impacts for a neighboring resident. The ordinance sets standards for how exterior lighting will be handled so that it won't affect the neighbors. The classification of office park is one that is low intensity in terms of noise, and certainly it's a non-issue with regards to odors and other things that might come from the more intensive industrial or research applications activities. So the land use itself provides a buffer for those residences from the areas beyond it. But the zoning ordinance itself does consider the adjacent residents carefully, and it does have extensive requirements related to ensuring that the neighbors are not affected by the office activities that will go on this property.
And as you talk, I get another question, if I may. In your field of what you've seen, pretty much on the ground, maybe in Washtenaw County, do we have examples of general commercial going right up to residential areas?
It's certainly more common in Wayne County, where you have older communities where mile roads or major county thoroughfares were 20, 30, 40 years ago were zoned commercial, which was a pattern at the time, with the residential immediately behind. It tends to not be a happy arrangement for the residents that are directly behind the general commercial. Usually the only solution, and it's not a good one, is to build a wall between the two. It's not a very functional solution, but that's typical in those more dense and older Wayne County communities. Certainly, as in the last 20 years, we don't see that kind of combination directly. I think the closest that may come would be a planned community like the Cherry Hill Village project in Canton Township, where we do have some commercial that is interwoven into or directly adjacent to a residential neighborhood, but is done at a very small scale. It is done in a pedestrian-oriented environment of a downtown or an urban neighborhood environment, which is not the type of arrangement that's anticipated for this property.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, more conceptual, because many of us in the township might have vacant land. I just want to know, at what point in time can the township change or not change the zoning? So let's say, in this particular case here, if they start construction, the township can't do what we're doing here, but as the time is prolonged, or there's no construction being dealt on the property, Salem Township has the authority to do this.
Generally, to answer your question, that's correct, but as long as the land remains vacant, certainly the township has the right to rezone it. If there had been construction undertaken, then the owner would have the argument that they have some vested interest at that point in the property to argue against rezoning. But until that happens, the township can't rezone the property.
Just a general question. This may not be necessarily with regards to the rezoning, but it is with my thoughts with regards to the utilities and namely the water. What I have seen, it is that they're going to plan on wells. And whether we go in there with high capacity wells, the quality of the water, the aquifer that is there, is it sufficient to satisfy the residents that are already there? Or what is this, some kind of a shot in the dark and go in there and try it and hope it works? Or is there any study that has been done to really truly identify how much water, the quality of the water, and really truly are we harming any of the residents in the area with their water supplies?
This, I'm not aware of studies related to wells, so I can't really speak to that. But what I can say is that this is an area that has been planned for public services, public water, public sanitary sewer. They obviously those services are not currently at the property, but the township has undertaken the studies to look at how to deal with that. And there are certainly utility providers, both for water and for sanitary sewer, in the area that are potentially involved in this process. Whether a particular project comes forward with an alternative or not, or perhaps a plan where they might start with a private well and move to public services when that's available, I think that would be something that we would address as a development project comes in as part of the discussions with the developer. This district is intended to, in terms of development review, it's intended that developers would come in through what's called the planned unit development process. And that's a process where the developer and the township can discuss early on these kinds of issues as we're looking at concepts for the development before the details of engineering are dealt with. So that would be something that would be discussed, I think, early on in that part, as part of that review.
If I may, to answer Mr. Converse's question, there was in the arbitration with regard to the other two parcels that Salem Springs owns, there was a question raised whether there was sufficient aquifer not only to service those properties, but the entire USD. Those questions were never really answered. The arbitration ruling was essentially that Salem Springs would be allowed to develop a well system to service only their property. And that did not include the centerpiece that we're talking about tonight. It included the other two parcels. So that issue was really never addressed. We don't know, to my way of thinking, even today, whether there's sufficient aquifer under the USD to supply the whole USD without negatively affecting other properties in the USD or other wells that are near the USD. That question kind of remains unanswered. To further answer your question, if in fact there's a well system put in for the Salem Springs property, that does not prohibit other landowners coming in, if they so desire, from using a municipal water system such as from Plymouth Township or from Detroit Water and Sewer. That could still be done elsewhere in the USD, even though a well system would be on the Salem Springs property.
Okay, anyone else?
I do. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm looking at my minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, and it says here that the USD ordinance effective date was 3/17/2005. Did that include the map of the intended USD uses at that time? The map you're talking about?
The map is, map 19, the Urban Service District Development Concept, is part of the master plan.
Right.
The most recent master plan was adopted on the 16th of March 2009. But the Urban Service District actually goes back well before that.
Well, there was this date on here that said 3/17/2005.
Now that is the date that the Urban Service District zoning ordinance regulations were adopted.
Okay, and do you know if that included the map that you were talking about?
It included
the visual map?
Yeah, I don't believe it included the map because that is part of the master plan. The master plan, just to give a little bit of background, the master plan is a policy document. It is intended to guide decision-making with regards to future development, with regards to zoning ordinance amendments, and other decisions related to land use in the township. The zoning ordinance is the primary regulatory tool that we use to essentially establish the requirements for various zoning districts. But the plan is the foundation under that sets the policies, the goals for the next 10 to 20 years as to what the township may develop into. The map is in the master plan. The ordinance sets out the specific zoning districts that are covered by the Urban Service District. And and those are single-family residential districts, 2 of them, multiple family residential, the residential office park district we're talking about tonight, a commercial Herman's Park district, which is more commercial activity in the area along Goffredson Road, and then the research and research applications district, which is area that's primarily south of M14. So this sets the zoning districts, and these districts are consistent with what the master plan recommends.
Okay, so that's what was the 2005 date that listed those.
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Plato, do you have the date as far as the current property owners when they purchased the property?
My understanding is that the property was changed. There was a deed from Salem Springs LLC to Salem Springs Owner LLC in 2009. I don't have the exact date with me, but that was when there was a change of ownership.
I have more questions. One that just came into my mind right now is what's the approximate market value of the centerpiece? Do we have any information on that? How would we go about getting that?
You would have to request an appraisal, have an appraisal done on the property.
Okay.
You can get an accurate market value of the property.
All right. And then I was wondering, Mr. Nanny, what would be the minimum amount of setback for the ROP parcel to the residential?
That's a good question. I don't recall that right offhand. I don't want to hold this up. I have to get that for you.
Okay, I would like that.
What I will say is that in terms of landscaping, typically the minimum width for what we might call landscape strip would be 20 feet. I believe that the setbacks are actually more than that. But that's really the minimum amount we need to ensure that the landscaping will grow appropriately and can prosper.
Okay. And then one other clarification, how often is the master plan updated? Is there a required schedule, like state law kind of thing, requiring townships to update it on a regular basis?
The State Planning Act governs our activities related to the Planning Commission and the master plan, requires the Planning Commission to review the master plan every 5 years. They don't have to update it every 5 years, but at least once every 5 years they need to put it on the agenda as a review item and consider whether or not there is any need to update it, either entirely or in part, and essentially pass a resolution to that effect, either recommending the board that it be updated or stating that the master plan is continues to be accurate and up to date.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Nanny, if you could approach this subject with us as far as from a very generic standpoint, under ROP zoning, conceptually, what types of buildings and size of buildings would of the Planning Commission anticipate a developer bringing forward in that type of zoning?
Well, the key is that these are going to tend to be smaller buildings. The goal of the residential office park is language talks about a campus-like environment. As you drive through an office park development, you'll see buildings scattered throughout the site. You might be looking at I think as mentioned, the types of buildings you might find for financial offices or professional offices. These are whether single-story or two-story, and there are certainly possibilities in the ordinance to have more than one floor on the building, but we're not looking at Chrysler World Headquarters in Auburn Hills or anything like that. We're looking at a more modest scale of activity that's typical of an office park development.
Does our ordinance specify maximum square footages of these types of buildings, or is that something, because it's a PUD process, as you mentioned earlier, that those are things that would come under the purview of the planning commission as they reviewed site plans?
There's certainly guidance in the ordinance and in the master plan about this kind of layout and size. As part of the plan unit development process, those details would be worked out.
The terminology residential office park, does that imply that there would be potential multiple uses within this sections of property, where there could be residential as well as the type of office campus buildings, or is it strictly office buildings?
It is an office park development. I think the name of it has more to do with the intended character of the district as a transition zone, so that it is an activity that can be adjacent to and compatible with residential neighborhood.
All right.
I was wondering, we talked about, in an abstract kind of way, what sort of businesses would be coming to the office park. Are there limits, or restrictions on what kind of businesses? Because we've talked medical, engineering, this kind of thing. Can a lot of times you see, like at Ridge and 6 Mile coming in here, there's kind of that business area right there in the corner by the school. It's kind of this mishmash of stuff. And, you see like the nail salon, the dry cleaner. I mean, are those sort of things prohibited because it's office park zoning, or how would that work, do you think?
Well, that is a commercial district there, and that type of activity is more in character with a straight commercial zoning. This the ordinance has very specific language about the types of office activities, and it is intended to be an office park development, so it would not typically include those kinds of more commercial-oriented businesses.
Because, one thing, since we are kind of isolated, in a way it's kind of a neat opportunity because there isn't a lot available around here, and I could see that being attractive. But I also think that within, if you have all these offices and all this kind of stuff, is it possible for food service type of operations to come into that park as well to service that lunch crowd and all that kind of thing? Is that normally done, is what I'm getting at?
Well, that is a great question. That's the overall concept of the urban service district as a whole is intended to provide that mix of activities.
So you're saying it would be out in that more general
right, and the area that's along on the north side of M14, on each side of Godfredson Road, there are areas that are identified for what the plan calls commercial commons park, and that is where those what you might call neighborhood commercial activities, including food service, would be located.
Okay, but it wouldn't be in that ROP,
not in the ROP
section. Okay, it'd have to be out.
Right.
Okay.
But one thing to keep in mind is that, although we're talking about large acreage here, 91 acres, these are intended to be interconnected. They're not intended to be isolated island development projects. They are intended to be closely interconnected, both with vehicular connections, but also pedestrian connections through.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so if not, then at this time, we'll open it up to those that might have a comment or two. This would be your time.
Thank you for letting us speak now. My name's Jeff Schlussel, law firm of Carson Fisher. We represent the owner, Salem Springs LLC. This entire process has been and remains improper. It goes without saying that the owner, Salem Springs LLC, does not support and does not want this property rezoned to the ROP designation. But the township's actions are improper because it's deliberately ignoring what this board did less than 1 year ago in requiring the Planning Commission to review all of the uses within the USD. As I'm sure you all know, on May 8th last year, this board passed a resolution instructing the Planning Commission to review the proposed zoning and uses for the entire USD. At the meeting, board members said the master plan is outdated and needs to be updated. They said it needs to be relooked at and the uses need to be reapportioned. It said, specifically for this property in question tonight, that ROP is not viable today for this property. It also noted that other designated uses within the USD are no longer proper. That is why they passed the resolution when they did. It recognized, and I know there's been a lot of talk tonight about, for example, the ROP designation. What this board last year realized is that 22% of the entire USD, 301 acres, is currently designated for the ROP designation. They realized that's not viable. Compared to that, only 9% is designated for commercial uses. That is why last year they rezoned this piece to general commercial, bringing that percentage up to 16% and only lowering the ROP designation to approximately the same, I think 16 or 17%. Moreover, what they realized is you have south of M14, nearly 48%, actually over 48% is designated for the RRA zoning, the research and research application. That's 607 acres. This board discussed it and said when the township adopted its master plan, it was considering that JCI was going to develop there. They have all but abandoned that property or their plans for that property to develop their headquarters and other research facilities. Speaking of the master plan, just to correct some of the statements you made, the master plan was adopted in 2009. The map you have all raised questions about designates the 50 acres that Salem Springs owns just east of Gotterson. It's designated right now as the Commercial Commons Park. That property was conditionally rezoned in 2006. So in 2009, when you adopted your master plan, you had the incorrect designation. Likewise, you had the incorrect designation for the other approximately 50 acres that Salem Springs owns to the north of this piece, which is designated for more intensive residential. You currently have much larger lots. Again, this was done in 2009. You knew of this conditional rezoning in 2006. So the master plan was flawed, and that is precisely what this board realized last year. They realized in 2005, they realized the uses then may not apply today in light of current market demands. It's our understanding that since that resolution was passed, nothing has been done. Instead, what's been done is this board has unilaterally decided, without the consent or input from Salem Springs LLC, to rezone the property, which the township realized was outdated less than a year ago. So our question is, how can the township determine the proper zoning for this property without going through the exhaustive process of determining the best uses as it relates to the remaining 1,300 acres within the USD? If this board decides to rezone the property tonight, without completing the review process, which it instructed the Planning Commission to do, what they're doing is at best premature. At worst, it's a deliberate attempt by the township to single out this property without going through the process of looking at the entire USD, which should be coming up in 2014 if it's a 5-year process, and you're contradicting your own directive. Moreover, the implementation of this rezoning process and the execution of this rezoning process, the steps taken or not taken by this township, is entirely improper and wholly inadequate. So what we are requesting tonight is that the township deny the Planning Commission's recommendation for the reasons we just presented, and instead instruct the Planning Commission to do what this board requested less than a year ago, to commence a full review of uses within the USD. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mike Homier. I'm an attorney with Buster Swift and represent the client along with Mr. Foley. A lot of the statements that you just heard are flat out wrong. and I'll tell you exactly why. One is, adopting a master plan is a legislative act. Whatever the prior board did, it's not binding on you. Same way with zoning. Whatever the prior board did, it's a legislative act, not binding on you. That's important because it is a legislative act. What that means for you is, at this point in this process, you've done everything that you need to do to rezone this property in compliance with your master plan. You have the opportunity to set the record straight. What happened in this case was that there was a fervent effort here to disenfranchise the voters of this township when the voters of this township said, we don't think this should be general commercial. We don't think you should violate your master plan. We don't think it belongs there. So, that means the property is now zoned agriculture, agriculture residential. Reverts to the prior zoning. That's what it is today. I don't care about the court case. It's agricultural. And even if we do care, it doesn't matter. Because whether it's agriculture or general commercial, there's no vested right in the zoning. Why? Because it's vacant. Nothing has been attached to the property. The only time you have a vested right in that zoning classification is if in fact you do proceed and build something. And then guess what? You could change the zoning again at any time. The difference is then it becomes a legal non-conforming use at that point, which means that use could be carried on, but you can change the zoning, provided it's reasonable, provided you comply with your process. That was the problem the first time around. The process was flawed. The notices were bad. It caused confusion. It did not change the fact that there was a properly filed petition for referendum along with 600-700 signatures. The public came out and they voted, which means the zoning never changed. It's zoned agriculture residential. It's master planned for ROP. It provides the necessary buffering from adjacent residential uses. It fits. General commercial didn't fit there. Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial, and the past board failed to follow. This time around, Planning Commission unanimously recommends rezoning it to ROP. This board has an opportunity to now eliminate any confusion about the zoning and any confusion about whether this township's going to follow its master plan. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of our board members have questions for these gentlemen? If not, there's a second on the table, I believe, correct? So we need to have a roll call vote at this time.
Hey Gary, would you repeat what you're gonna be voting on?
Sure. TJ, you want to read that again?
Want me to read it without the numbers?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I move that Salem Township Board adopt resolution number 2013-03-12-01, the only numbers, amending the zoning ordinance of Salem Township to rezone said parcels, approximately 91.6 acres, from agriculture residential to residential office park.
And we have a second by Mr. Trent, I believe.
All right, the roll call vote will start in just a second. All right. Converse?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley. Yes. And Whitaker,
Yes. The resolution is passed. Okay, down to number 9 on reports. We believe in our packets, we have the clerk revenue and expenditures. And then also 9B, we did move down the law enforcement package, which is included. And so now we're down to number 10, which is board discussion. Our first discussion is on our land preservation and conservation board scoring system. Before we start any discussion at the table, I'd just like to make just a little brief comment. I know there's a lot of controversy on this particular issue, and this is kind of why we want to discuss this tonight. And to be honest, I just feel we need to have this discussion and then to clarify some things so that the public understands, the board understands. The past board agreed on a piece of property that the township bought the development rights on it. And many people have been upset the way that process has happened. I know myself have been a little bit disappointed with it. And I feel that we just need to figure out if this, the board itself, if we, I just feel like we need to reorganize this. So I think I'd just like to have some discussion up here tonight to talk about it. And just let's make sure that we are all on the same page as a township, that if we're going to continue this, that there's going to be some changes on the scoring system that we look at. You know, just the things that I'd like to discuss is if it's about purchasing development rights or buying property that we can physically walk onto the property and say that we have ownership in it. But there's different, you know, so that's why we want to talk in closed session on some of the issues that maybe they were bringing before us. That's why, as you see in our agenda, in closed session, there's some other purchasing of development rights that they would like to discuss with us. So at this time, if there's any other...
I haven't heard anybody say that you have a map of this township with a plan for what...
That will be one of the things we'll be talking about.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else on the board here?
Being the
Is your mic on?
being the board liaison to this, I walked into it really knowing nothing, okay? And so I had just kind of open ears, closed mouth when you're learning something new. And, you know, we all love what we call our rural character. We're out here for a reason. We like the beauty of it. And there's this fine line that we constantly have to walk. As we've just seen, you know, we're in a sticky situation over development coming in here. And then we want to talk about what we can do as a township to preserve the beauty here. And I'm very conflicted on how we go about doing these things. I want us to have control over our land here and our, you know, how we're developed. I think it's really important to keep it locally controlled. And one way that I'm understanding we do this, one method is our zoning and our ordinances to have, you know, minimum square footage, acreage for every residential lot. That's one way we can slow things down as far as getting too built up. Nobody wants to see the township overwhelmingly built up. We do all these other things with this urban services district. We want to keep the businesses in one section so that we keep what we've got going on out here. It's very special, when you think about how close we are to really highly populated areas. I really have a new appreciation when I look at these things and I think, wow, we've really got to protect this. As I started to learn about development rights purchases, some of the things, these are just facts. This isn't really an opinion yet of mine. But one of the things that you can do, because, I'm going to guess that a lot of us don't really know a lot about land preservation development rights as a tool for preserving land. So what you do is, a landowner can essentially come before and say, I want to apply to sell my development rights. And what this would do, if the land scores properly to the system that's already in place, then they can have that area of their land zoned agriculturally. And that means it cannot be developed. You can't put houses, you can't put businesses, anything like that. It has to stay agricultural. And that landowner retains full ownership of the land. There's some good things in this. They retain full ownership. Whoever buys the land after them has that same restriction on their property. It cannot be developed. Those rights have been sold. They are subject to an annual inspection to make sure that things are not going on that go against this agreement. It lasts forever. Apparently there is a 50-year timeout kind of thing where whoever owns the land, they could come back and say, I would like to buy my development rights back. But they don't really get that option to buy it back unless that option is granted to them. So what this program tries to do is go with the Ann Arbor Greenbelt or a federal program. It's like a ranch lands protection type thing. And they can apply to have those rights purchased by those groups. And what those groups want to do is they want us as Salem Township to partner with them. And that's what happened on the first one that closed back in December. Salem Township partnered on that. So about $64,000 of Salem Township's money went into that agreement. And so, you're looking at all this, you're not really sure what the effect is. Now, from the beginning, just because of my general philosophy, I was a little alarmed at the forever thing. I don't like being locked in to stuff. And it seems like, what if things change a lot down the road? And the people who live here, when we're all gone, say, we need that land for something else. So we're kind of taking that decision-making away from them. And that's something I'm always leery of, no matter what. It makes me uncomfortable. So in my mind, there are certain conditions that I can see development rights purchases working. I would like to see them not forever. I kind of tend, as I've learned about this, I think, well, how would I like this kind of thing? And for me, in my mind, I like a term that's short, maybe 10 years, not as much money, and it would have to be reapplied for renewal at the end of those 10 years. It wouldn't be locked in forever. And when you get involved with the federal government, there are always strings attached. And they have ownership. They have a say in that. Do you think they're going to sell back development rights to somebody once they have control? When does the federal government ever give back control over anything? I'm kind of anti-federal government sometimes. It's just, they're too big. But regardless, that's another conversation. So those are my guiding principles and values. So as I've learned about this, I've come to some, opinions of my own as I've been educated. And I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight, kind of where I'm at as a board member on these things. So for development rights purchases to work for the best result, in my opinion. And these guys, they have their own opinions, but this is what I've learned. I like them short development agreements, 10 years. They expire and would have to be renewed. And I would also like to see a cap on how much can be spent for development rights based on the property's value. I think one of the big problems we just had is that the development rights purchase gave the landowner, a huge portion of the money that their land cost. And for us taxpayers to contribute to that and helping someone of private land benefit off taxpayer money, I am also uncomfortable with that. So there's a lot of little sticky issues going on, and I think as a township, we should seriously look at these things and reevaluate how we do things going forward. So thanks for listening to me.
Thanks, Mary Beth. I think most of the people on the board have had some discussion, and my thought on it has been just to look at the scoring system, but I believe that it would be, if you had a great piece of property to look at to purchase, the township to actually own the property, and then maybe take a portion of that that made sense to buy development rights. If it can be split up some way to where, let's say it's a couple hundred acres and 100 of it could be preserved, but then the other that the township actually owns, that we can walk on it. And but anyway, these are some new charges that I think that we'd like to talk to our land preservation board and then, just so that everybody in the community can understand the direction we want to go with this. So, anybody else?
Mr. Supervisor, if I could perhaps ask a question of Consultant Lonick or any of the representatives from the Land Preservation and Conservation Board that are here tonight. We had been advised that the scoring system that was adopted was a maximum total of 100 points that a property could achieve in the consideration after it was submitted. And in our board package, I took what was submitted to the board when the scoring system was adopted. I'm coming up with a point total that is much higher than that. When I go through and look at each category, I'm coming up with a potential point total of 180. And I guess I just wanted to get some clarification if I'm misinterpreting how the points are accumulated, or if I'm double counting. And I don't know if you have that information directly in front of you. If you don't, I'd be happy to give you a copy of what we on the board have in front of us tonight.
What I have is the scoring system that was approved by the Board of Trustees last year.
Okay.
Which is what we've been operating with.
On 9/26/2011?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay. So just for example, item A, agricultural land, 1A, characteristics of the land, maximum point total there would be 10, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So then item B would be 5?
Correct.
Then 5 on the next one?
Yep.
5, 10, 5, 5, then we're down to 2, context. 5, maximum 5 points there?
I think we eliminated, by the way, A1G, the agricultural use. It's, on my copy that's been crossed out, and I haven't been scoring that particular criteria. But everything else you said is correct.
Okay. Under item 2, context, there's A, B, C, D, and E, and F.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm coming up with a potential 35 points in that category.
That sounds right.
Okay, and then we're into acquisition considerations, matching funds, 10. landowner donation, 10 points, so there's a 20 points there, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's the end of the agricultural scoring criteria.
Right.
And there's a second set of criteria for natural area open space properties. It starts with letter B.
Right. Now, are those distinctly separate scoring items, or is it a cumulative of A and B?
What I have been doing is evaluating whether a property is primarily agricultural or primarily natural area open space. And then evaluating them on one or the other, not both systems.
Ah, okay. Good. I do come up with 100 points under the B category, but I wasn't coming up with 100 under the A category, and I was just trying to understand. And that's why I was adding both categories and thinking that it was possible to get 180 points. But now that you've at least helped clarify that there's two separate distinct categories in the scoring system, Mr. Supervisor, I think some of the concerns that have gotten generated over the last couple of months indicate that there might be a growing desire to have a scoring system that would give weight to properties that the township would actually own outright. And I think one of the other concerns too that's been bounced around is assessing how much of a property can be perked, where there will be true development options on that piece of property. It's one thing to own 100 acres, but if only 5 acres of it perks, the other 95 really doesn't have a lot of development material. But if you've got 100 acres and all of it perks, now you're looking at something that has more development merit to it. And I think those are the kinds of issues that as we go forward, we might want to generate a revised scoring methodology that incorporates those concerns into our evaluation process.
Okay.
One of the questions that I've got going through this rating system here, it really seems to be that you really truly place a high emphasis on big pieces of parcels, smaller numbers. And I kind of go back, if this is public money, it should more or less have public use or the public should be able to enjoy this rather than just being able to have a few people around this one parcel of property enjoy it. And I'm really coming back and don't see in this whole area, when we go back here and say we can have 1 or 2 big farms out here, that encompasses everything, that the whole total township is not really benefiting from 1 or 2 pieces of property, small number of property, where if they had more pieces spread out throughout the whole township, where at least we could get more people could enjoy the property that's there.
That's why we need a map, a plan.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
When you talk about the plan, I agree with you that I would kind of like to see this being tied into the planning commission too. If we have a master plan, but conservation and preservation isn't necessarily working side by side, I don't know how much is going on behind the scenes with all of that, but that would make a lot of sense too, is that, this is kind of worked out into that master plan, and seeing as we do have a mandated review of this, 2014, I believe, because that would be 5 years. That would be a nice thing to kind of work together on and figure out what would be the most advantageous areas for us to consider for preservation, conservation efforts.
Do we have a Parks Commission? We don't.
Not currently, but there's
Right.
there's a proposal to put together a Parks and Recreation master plan
Right.
for the township, and that's moving along. There was one exception I would say, Mary Beth, and that is that in the master plan document, there is an agricultural preservation overlay. And so as part of the last master planning process, the planning commission said, these are the areas of the township where we think if we're gonna focus on farmland preservation, this is where it should occur. So, I mean, they're fairly large areas of the township. It's not the entire township. And there are other places that are designated for other uses. But there was an additional step taken to say, if we're gonna do farmland preservation, this is where it should be.
Okay.
All right,
Sandy's on the board, she's also on the planning commission board, so we do tie in.
Okay, because like I say, I don't know all the, you know, how things are being networked, but.
So we're not working on that.
okay. We can move on to the next, or you got a question? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to comment that when I went to the Michigan Township Association conference in January, I attended a session on land preservation. And I'm with Mary Beth, the federal government, they already own almost a third of the contiguous US, so they do own a lot. But that being said, what I found interesting was there are a lot of other townships around us that are doing the same thing. But what it seems like a majority of them have done is actually put it on the ballot to approve a property tax increase over a period of time, a certain number of mills set aside to purchase either land or development rights. And I personally feel more comfortable with that because then I would know if it passed, then that meant that the majority of residents want this. I mean, that's one way of finding out if that's what, you know, if most Salem Township residents want this type of land preservation, then I think it'd be a good idea to get it on the ballot, and then we would have those monies set aside. You know, otherwise, I don't know. I hear from, you know, some people, but to me, that's a way of knowing what the majority of the township wants.
Okay. Is that it? All right, let's down to B, the township website, which maybe finally we're going to have a new website.
I have some things to pass out here. I've got some quotes. Gary, this is for you, and Del, that is for you. Those are, what I just handed you was a complete, like, 9-page estimate from a web developer that's kind of specializes. They do Plymouth Township's website development, and I just thought, well, you know, let's see what a neighboring community is going to run. And then we also have a bid that I'm handing out to the board members from kind of an independent web developer, a sole proprietorship, independent business owner. And this is her bid right here. Yeah, I have my copy. And then board members, I also have a 2-page condensed version of the municipal web services estimate. Yeah. And I believe this copy should also go to Dale, the full 9-page. So he has it for his records. And David, I have to make sure I didn't give them all away, huh? So essentially what we've been hearing is that the website, you know, it's difficult to find stuff on there, particularly archived things, and just, it seems a little confusing. You know, am I going for the minutes for this coming Tuesday night, or is it something that I need from 2 years ago? So what we would like to do is get a system that is a lot more simple, because I don't think we have that much going on. We're not Novi, we're not Canton, that, I mean, their website is for everything, community, I mean, just so much going on. So I truly believe we can streamline this and get a very simple design up and going. It makes it very clear. These are the upcoming monthly minutes, the board packets, all those things, and it should be extremely clear where the archived stuff is. And We have some good things already in place. We have the minutes on demand that you can go back and get the archived things, so that's good. But I think we can truly simplify this, make it a lot easier to use. And so we have, for somebody like Municipal Web Services, they want a lot of money, because that's a complete redesign and giving us all the bells and whistles you could ever want and all this kind of stuff to the tune of about $7,500. And they have two prices. One would be, and I hope I'm understanding all this correctly, I can certainly follow up with more questions to them, but the other price range is $5,500 for they have two versions, Municipal Web Services. One is HTML, and then they would be responsible for every little change. They kind of own this thing, and it's all the maintenance, everything. But then, if we go with this other vendor, she would design it so that we actually own it, and we pay for the hosting with a separate company as opposed to one person kind of blocking in all the services at once. And Municipal Web Services, I wanted to mention, that higher price is for something, can you tell me what it says there, the term that they say for the $7,500? Essentially, you pay more. It's a content management system so that we can go in with our folks, we can have our office staff trained on how to update things regularly. So it's more expensive for them to kind of give us a system that we own and, we can manipulate as we see fit. So this other vendor, I would certainly more recommend that person because they're coming in at $1,500 and then telling us that we pay our own contract with hosting services. And this system from the other vendor would give us complete control. She would actually train us on how to manage the content. And so it seems like a very good value for that. So that was something that I thought we should talk about tonight, and if you guys want to go forward with getting a new look on the website, making it much more simple, those are kind of our goals, and then that we can control what goes on there very easily. We can get things up really
I say we go forward
quickly. The other thing that I'm excited about here for our website, we talked about the Nixle alert system. That's going to be coming up, I think, on our next item. But the Nixle alert, can I see a show of hands who knows what Nixle is? Okay, so Nixle, N-I-X-L-E, is an alert system that you can go to Nixle.com, write this down, go to Nixle.com, and you can sign up for alerts as to crimes, accidents, road closures, a lot of variety of things, and it comes from the Washtenaw County Sheriff, but it's a nationwide thing. So you type in your address, you go there, and then you're going to get alerts specific to your area. We could incorporate that into the website as well, from what I understand. So that would be very nice. If you don't have one of the new smartphones, you could go online, look at the website, and see what's been going on. Relative, like a ticker is what I envision. So those are some things we can do when we have control over the website ourselves, and we can make those changes. One of the complaints we've been seeing with the current provider, Revise, is a very slow response time for what we're getting. And could you pull that up for me? We're paying about $1,800 a year for them and their maintenance and all that kind of stuff. And folks are telling me in the office and what Gary's been experiencing that they've been very dissatisfied. So that's what's going on with the website.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, just as some additional background information, when we transitioned from the county template that many smaller communities in the county utilized when websites became the rage 15, 20 years ago, that we ended up doing a lot of work in-house through the work of one of our former trustees. We transition to Revise and had what you might call the basic type of website where we could go in and make changes on our own, and it seemed to be easy to do that. 2 years ago, I believe, a proposal came forward that in order to give us more information, more accessibility to information on the website, we actually did acquire a content management system with Revise that we have already invested several $1,000s, similar to what Mary Beth just shared with this other company. I think we spent close to $6,000 or $6,500 to get an upgrade to this content management system. And for whatever reasons, as we've gone through this transition of, trying to change the content of who our board of trustees are and this and that and so on and so forth, this became a major nightmare where we didn't have control of the process. We had to rely on the vendor to actually go in and make all of those changes, and it was a complete reprogramming of the website. So something that was billed as, we're going to give you the ability to do more information and do it easier, has become exactly the opposite for whatever reasons. And I don't profess to have any expertise in that realm, but if we can go with a lower cost provider that will simplify the process, maybe simple is better for our purposes, and we can reevaluate down the road what makes sense. But I have had a couple of citizens contact me the past week about information that is currently not updated on the website, and they're absolutely right. We've got a lot of work to do to get things up to speed with the changes in just personnel and appointments to various committees over the last few months. And we need to put the pedal to the metal and get it done.
How quick can we get this up and running with?
The one vendor, the sole proprietorship, she was saying probably 2 weeks.
Okay.
A week to 2 weeks. I want to say 2 because I want to really go through it very carefully.
Which one?
Is that 5,500 or 1,500?
I think we need to make a motion. Can we make a motion?
Do we have enough homework to make a motion?
Bid
I
process.
think we have.
Bid process if it's
I just seen
over.
her hand out
We've
the
had the bid-
paperwork, I just seen her
we've
hand
had
out
the
the
bid
paperwork
process.
tonight.
Mhm. I don't have a bid process.
Two. Just enough paperwork tonight.
She only did two.
Paperwork for what?
The
work
site.
Nobody needs help.
Right. It's got two bids.
Got two bids.
Well,
give
I
it
mean,
three.
could I open it up to public comment
Honestly.
before I make a motion?
If somebody wants to make a comment about it, you can, but I think it's pretty simple.
Mhm.
5 minutes ago, they learned about it, now they're gonna vote on it.
We do have 3 bids.
Mr. Supervisor, based on the information that's been provided by Trustee Schmidt, I make the following motion that Salem Township approve the expenditure of $1,500 to do the setup cost for a new website to be administered by Homestead Technologies with a hosting service fee of $19.99 per month
No, I'm not.
thereafter.
I second that. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, down, we heard a little bit about the Nexel alert system. Any more discussion on that? I think the campaign that we've talked about tonight about charging part of Neighborhood Watch and that should be a campaign charge to that committee to get residents to sign up on this alert system, which would be really, I believe, beneficial to the residents to know what's going on. We have a lot of,
It's still there.
had some rash of break-ins going on. We had some here last week,
Yeah, last Monday.
last Monday. And Chief Rockwell did put alert out there, and all of us that are signed up got notified right away what was going on. So it's a good tool for residents to have it and be alerted, because a lot of people just don't know what's going on in our township, even though, we might have an extra trooper, but it would be good if our residents could be alerted on anything that's been going on in the township, so that we can be looking out for each other, our places, our homes, and so I just think it would be a great program if we could figure out how to get a campaign to get people signed up on it. I mean, Flag Day or whatever we talked about, just trying to get our residents to get signed up on it. So that's kind of what I think would be a great thing to keep the people informed of what's going on. Any other comments about it?
This is a suggestion. We do have, it's a couple months down the line, but we do have Flag Day coming up, and it might be a good idea so we could promote it at that time when we have a lot of people coming through the community. If we had a big booth set up, we could get people, get their apps on their phone, and we could get set up pretty easy, I think, if we would have a common time where everybody could go back in and get it.
And the great thing about this, it's not going to cost us anything except for literature, printed material that we would want to prepare. I would like to see brochures in our office and have our office staff being, trained to say to every person that comes in, here's a brochure on Nixle, please sign up. And encourage everyone in your circle, it's not just Salem Township, and you can also go up and get other areas for your email and text notifications. You can choose South Lyon. In fact, I did that the other day. You can pick other areas, so it's nice. So we just need, a little bit of money really for printed materials as we try and reach out to everybody. We had talked about Flag Day, putting stuff in the office. It might even be worth, at key times, just have some signs, like when you campaign and you see some signs out at corners at busy intersections, have a sign, have you got your Nixle, or got Nixle? Got milk? We can do stuff like that, and it'll be low cost, to get the awareness. We can also promote it on the website to people to sign up. So you're charged, go do it, get ahead of us on and the messenger, absolutely.
That would be probably the easiest way to get something.
Absolutely, we totally agree, and that will be in there in the April edition.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
No, I usually be a Santa. No, I want to know who is in charge of putting out what Nixle puts out. Now, as I understand it, the roads were slippery, and we all looked out and we could see the roads were slippery, but we all got a Nixle notice that said, the roads are slippery. That's not something that I would expect to be on Nixle. Besides, I have to pay for every incoming text that I get. I didn't think that something like that, who's responsible for telling us what really is important?
Washtenaw County Sheriff, they're working.
Jim Rockwell put this out, that's why I want to know.
Well, Salem Township Fire Department also has its own, there's kind of like a free account you can sign up for, and you have kind of limited amount of stuff you can do. But primarily what I'm getting from is the Washtenaw County Sheriff, because I said that I wanted that kind of notification. But our fire department can put out notices when it
So we're talking
relates
about
to
two
things.
different kinds of Nixles now.
No, it's all, Nixle is multifaceted. It has many, many law
Let me ask
enforcement
again.
things.
If I sign up for Nixle, who puts out, who says what's important?
Depends on what you
Jim Rockwell, the county, or you guys?
Well, we don't, because Salem doesn't have its own subscription, which that is available for townships to have their own subscription. You have to pay for that, a yearly thing. But you're going to be getting them from your Washtenaw County Sheriff. Now, I don't know how, we'd have to ask Jim Rockwell when he gets back. Can you select not to get it from the fire department?
You actually have to sign up for who you want. You can. I actually signed up for Novi, I signed up for South Lyon, all of the adjacent. If you don't want Salem's Fire, you don't have to get Salem's Fire.
Right.
I signed up for Washtenaw. It's just like registering for anything online. You choose out of a vast majority. I can get them down in other states if I want. So You pick who you want.
But I
You
think,
don't have to get it on text either, sorry. You can just get email notifications. You don't have to get text messages.
Well, this is the first time I ever heard that one, because Jim said you got it all on text, and everybody said, it comes to your cell phone. My cell phone charges me, because I don't use my cell phone like a smartphone like a teenager. I get charged for everyone, so I wanna know if it's pouring down rain, am I gonna get a Mixel notice that says it's pouring down rain? There was Mixel notices going out, the schools are closed, the buses aren't moving. One came out that said, the roads are slippery.
all right, well, anyway, that's just kind of
That's why I
the,
wanna know.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I get mine through email all the time. They're very timely, very clear, and no charge at all, obviously.
okay. All right, thank you.
Hmm.
All right, any more
But would
discussion
you
on
be
that?
annoyed if you got an email that said the roads are slippery?
Okay, down to D, and that's to,
That's why God invented
for a special board meeting, set the end of this month. I don't have a calendar in front of me, if somebody does.
Mr. Supervisor, in reviewing our revenue expenditure report that's in our board package, as well as upcoming expenditures, and because we are in a mode of committing funds to certain projects such as capital expenditures for a new fire truck and setting aside monies that are committed for land preservation. In light of the closed session subject matter that we're going to go into shortly for Salem Springs, discussion of the arbitration ruling, the financial impact on the township, those could have factors on how much monies are going to be available at the end of this month to actually commit to those capital expenditures. And that is why I'm reluctant to bring forward a motion today to say we can commit X amount of dollars when we may not have those dollars on March 29th. So I would like the board to set up a special board meeting that last week of the month and talk about our schedules. It would be a very brief meeting just to take care of any last minute budget amendments and, the vacating of the alley issue that hopefully would be resolved and ready to vote on at the end of the month. So we had canceled the meeting for March 26th. That's a Tuesday night. I don't know if that's still good for folks. Johnny D knows the schedule that far out. Or if Wednesday or Thursday would work. Friday is Good Friday that week, so I would not recommend that. We're going to process payroll on the 25th that month. So we'll have the payroll numbers and the impact of that, and where we might stand on the fire department as well too. That is one cost center that we may have to revisit at the end of the month because of all the additional fire responses that have occurred because of down wires and structural fires that have been responded to the last couple of weeks.
So what about the, is it 26th? Yeah, 26th? I will be absent.
So that Tuesday night would work for everybody? Is it 7 o'clock still the best time, or 7:30? And we can adjust the time to accommodate everybody's schedule. So March 26th at 7 o'clock.
March 26th,
We'll call it a special board meeting instead of a regular one? Okay. That should be a very limited agenda.
all right. So now we're down to public comment. Yes.
I would like to know when you guys redo the website, will you please take the state police off? We're not trying to intimidate people anymore. They take up all our all our parking spaces, and that's not Salem. Salem is what it is, but it's not the state police on everything. Thank you.
Could I address that? I love your idea. And what would be really cool is if people would send in photos that they've taken around our township. And then somebody had suggested that we have kind of like a slideshow going, like rotation of pictures.
Excuse me, but that's what we had before we got this website. And it was pictures all around the township. There was bales of hay, and there was a firefighter, and there was cattle, and there was, I don't think there were cats, but there was everything.
Horses.
And we had that would go on our website. Across the town,
Cows?
there was a banner.
Thank you.
That's what you said.
Yeah, it'll be
So that's
nice.
what we had before we had the website.
Yeah, we can totally do that. And if you have suggestions about things, just, aesthetics or, certain things you'd like to see, feel free to email me about those, because we can talk with the designer. She's extremely flexible, can do what we want.
Okay. O'Neill.
Yes, has there been any settlement on the 457 deal yet, or is it still going on?
Let it go in.
It's still going on.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, if not, we will take a short break before we go to closed session at 9:16 or 17.
Start having some more fun at these meetings.
Ah, sure.